I started coming over to see her while she lived at her mother's house. I had to visit while her mom was at work because she never wanted anyone to visit my wife. We played games with the kids and went to the neighborhood pool a few times. After about 4 months of daily visits and even some sleepovers with the kids at my house, her mother changed the locks of her house while they stayed over. She thought that since her daughter trusted me enough to bring the kids to my house, we knew each other well enough for her to move in. I'm sure it had nothing to do with the fact that she just wanted to unload her daughter on someone else because she herself was engaged to be married. We had a great 2 months of living together until we found out from the landlord that there wasn't enough space for 3 children. I immediately started looking for new housing for my new family of 5. We searched for a while, but couldn't find any houses that fit our budget, so I agreed to move in with her father several states away. I was scared to move away from everything I knew for the past 10 years for a woman I didn't know. I should have kicked her out right then, but I decided she was worth taking the leap for. I was used to being married and committed to someone. I wanted children, and I cared for the 3 of them. That's why I came home from work and found out that she was still talking to her youngest's father. She swore that it was about visiting the child only, nothing between them, but she was planning to meet him so he could at least say goodbye to his child if we were moving so far away. She asked if we were moving like she wasn't even sure it was happening, despite all the packing and boxes in my house. She was on her phone more than usual, and I just knew this was more than what she was saying. We got into a fight about it, so she left with the kids for a while. I went out drinking, and I wondered if this was the right thing to do. I got home late, and she still wasn't back. I started to worry because I really did care about her, and I was never a father, but I could imagine a dad should have every right to say goodbye to his child. I was more worried that there was more going on between my new girlfriend, who I was risking everything I had for, and the kid's father. My worries were becoming more real when she didn't come home until the next morning. It was very strange because she didn't get back until I was at work, one of the last days before moving. When I got home, she acted like everything was fine, and it was such a relief to see me. It was a relief to see her too because I got used to her presence. Everything was good until we laid down in bed together. Then her heart was pounding so loud I could hear it. I asked her what was going on, and she broke down. She said she slept with her kid's father again. I jumped out of bed and started screaming. I knew this was going to happen. This was why I didn't want her to go, and we had a fight about it. It was 12 a.m. when they went back to her mom's house, but she wouldn't let them in, so I bought her a hotel room for her and the kids before they drove 10 hours the next day. She called me so many times, begging me to answer the phone and give her another chance. She said she loved me and never meant to sleep with him. She knew it was the last and only time she was ever going to sleep with another man besides me. I told her she was wrong because I would never have her again. I have no idea where she is today, but I know I lucked out. I was willing to give her my heart and provide for her and her children, but it wasn't enough for her to remain loyal to me and respect my wishes. I believe I'll find a woman that knows how to turn down a man's advances out of love and dedication to me. Opie, I am so sorry this woman betrayed your kindness, generosity, and commitment for one more night with her ex. It shows how immature and mindless she was for failing to think of you or her kids or any of the consequences of it. It sounds like her mother was heartless, but familiar with her daughter's poor decision-making. Having 3 kids and an abusive marriage should have caused your ex to think through the long-term effects of her actions. She should have put herself last with her children and you coming first. Sometimes we all have to go through massive tragic mistakes to realize what we need to work on to better ourselves. We might not ever have the answers to our hardest questions until we suffer. The hardest thing to learn is probably that you don't matter very much. Whatever you project or do is what matters, so focus on making that worthy and positive. No one should have to have many bad experiences with people. Anyways, that's enough for this story. Let's now get into our second story for today. I was a single father living with my elderly mother. My girlfriend left me and our child to find herself. She enrolled in a school out of state and lived with a roommate. She didn't really give me any indication that we'd be getting back together in the future. She did say she'd want to be in her son's life, but that would be later. I was shocked and basically begged her not to leave or do this. I asked her if she could do classes online, but she said it was the freedom and experience she needed in addition to the knowledge. 2 years after she left, I'd been with several women that never met my son. I wouldn't have them at my house. Instead, I had my sister come over to babysit. She felt bad enough that my ex abandoned us. Well, at least for a while. I was at work when I got a phone call that made my stomach flop. I stepped outside to answer it, and of course it was my ex. She said she graduated and was moving back to our town. She said she knew it had been a while, so she didn't expect me to let her back into our lives easily, but she made it clear that she intended to win back my heart. I'll admit I was pretty happy. I thought the ordeal was over and we could have the life I thought we would. As soon as she got back, she had me over at her new place and we made a nice reunion out of it. I went home on cloud nine and started dreaming about her reuniting with our son. It happened sooner than it should have. Just a week after she got back, she saw him again. I wanted her back in our lives and I wanted her back in our house, but she said she wanted me to come over at least one more time before she started packing up. She added that she had something to tell me, but thought it would be better in person. I was nervous at this point because I knew I let her back in my heart too fast. I started assuming the worst. When I got there, she introduced her male friend roommate to me. Before I could even react to the fact she was living with some guy while I was sleeping with her, she started kissing him in front of me. I started yelling no and tried to turn around and leave, but they both grabbed me and made me sit on the couch. I was obviously terrified. I stayed still and pretended I would hear them out. She explained that since she found herself in college and that she needed me to at least consider the possibility of sharing her with AP. She said the idea excited her and this was a way we could keep the relationship alive. She added that I could have another woman too if I wanted. I thought of our son and felt so weird. I didn't want him to live in a house with his parents and their other lovers. This was never going to happen. I knew we were done because she was living and sleeping with this guy without telling me. She purposely tried to get me into something I would never have agreed to if she told me about it beforehand. As soon as there was enough space between me and them, I bolted out the door. She yelled after me and even tried to grab me, but I was gone. I got back to my boy and gave him a huge hug. I called the police to report how she held me there and threatened to drug me if I didn't stay. I filed for custody of our son that very same week and 1 month later because my wife and AP were already broken up, so she had no permanent address or place for him to live. The police report might have helped my case. I think it was pretty obvious that he should continue to live with me. Visitation was scheduled, but she doesn't always show up because it makes her mad that I'm ordered to be present and that I don't fall for her emotional tricks. Plus, every time she sees her son, she knows deep down that she messed up. I feel bad she's missing out on so much. Whenever she gets a job, child support will start coming out of her wages. I started dating again like I was before, but I've also made sure to start spending time with myself. I speak positively to myself and rest assured that when it's time for a woman to become a role model in my son's life, she will. Opie, I am so sorry your girlfriend abandoned you and the child. It's hard to believe she would up and leave without giving you a hint at the future of your relationship, but she probably didn't want you to wait just in case she decided never to return. She did not deserve a second chance as your woman and the mother of your child, and she probably knew that, which is why she manipulated you into meeting her without telling you everything first. She wanted you to feel like everything was going to be fine now that she was back. It's a very tricky mind tactic. The fact that you unexpectedly lost her and expected a future together was another reason she was able to convince you so easily. She was willing to terrorize you to get her way, but you managed to get the heck out of there and never go back. You are a very wise and thoughtful man. You put your child's well-being above your own emotions, which is precisely what all parents should be doing. It takes an adult to realize that their emotions don't have to rule their actions. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. I want to thank all of you again for your support. It truly means a lot to me. Before I, 39 male, met my ex-girlfriend, 35 female, I was married for almost 10 years. My ex-wife and I started off great, but toward the end of our relationship, we just couldn't get along. We didn't have any children or anything tying us together, so we mutually agreed that it would be best to call it. One of the things that drew me to my ex-girlfriend when we met was how we had similar experiences with our partners. She was cheated on by her ex-husband and baby daddy, so she left him. We bonded over our shared experiences, and given both of our pasts, I figured we would put a lot of effort into having a great relationship. I met her daughter, and we were an unofficial family for the 3 years that we were together. I wanted to marry her and formally adopt her daughter, so she would have my last name. Because of the custody arrangements she had with her ex, he was very much in the picture. She would argue with him all the time about pickup and drop-off times. She would complain to me about how he was buying her a ton of fast food and spoiling her when they were together. We both thought it was some ploy to get her daughter to spend more time with him. I was used to her texting him all the time. They would have phone calls and video chats from time to time as well. As far as I was aware, everything they discussed was about childcare. She would never go to other places to make the calls. She would tell me about everything that happened with him anyway, so there wasn't much of a point to it. I thought we had a pretty open relationship in that respect. One day, I noticed that she was stepping outside a lot to make the calls. My suspicions weren't raised immediately, but I did think it was weird. I would ask her about what he had to say when she came in, and she told me that he was giving her a hard time about dates and things like that. She was very vague with a lot of her answers. With their custody arrangements, they would alternate weekends that they would spend with their kid. So, every other weekend, I would surprise my girlfriend with a fun date night or something like that. I knew that she wasn't happy with the custody arrangement, so anything I could do to help her was good in my eyes. One weekend, I made plans to take her to a museum, then we would grab lunch and catch a movie after. I told her that we had plans, but I didn't tell her exactly what we were doing. I had already bought the tickets for everything because I just assumed everything would be fine. She went to drop her daughter off at her ex's house, and I waited around for her to show up back home. Time kept going, and she didn't show up. She knew that we had plans, and it was unlike her not to be on time for something. My mind went to the worst case scenario, and I immediately started calling her to make sure she was okay. She didn't answer the phone, and I was a little panicked. All I could do was wait to hear something back from her. About an hour after I had reached out, I got a response from her saying that she was going to be spending the day with her daughter and ex. I was really confused about that because I knew she couldn't stand her ex. Plus, it was his custody weekend, and unless he invited her somewhere, she had no right to be lingering around. I didn't want to push it and ask a lot of questions, so I just told her that I was worried, and I casually asked what they were up to. She didn't respond to me until the end of the day. She told me that they went to a water park together since one just opened up near her ex. When she got home later that night, I asked her about her day to see how everything was. She told me that they all had a fun time, and she was glad that her daughter was able to spend time with both of her parents. She told me that it all felt normal again. Normal for her changed when he cheated on her and she divorced him. I was getting a sense that she missed what they had as a family. I could understand that, but I was a little bit nervous. I loved my girlfriend, and I didn't want to lose her. She apologized for missing my plans and promised to make it up to me. When she said that, I thought she was being a little cheeky about making it up to me, and then when I made a move on her, she turned me down. Our sex life wasn't the greatest on the planet before all of this, but after the weekend she spent with her ex, it was non-existent. For weeks, every time I would try to kiss her for more than a couple of seconds or do anything intimate with her, she would come up with an excuse to get away from me. At the same time, she was spending more time with her ex. It felt wrong to complain about it because she was framing it in a way that she was doing it for her daughter, but after a while, I started to suspect that there was more to it. She came home late one night from dropping her daughter off at her ex's house, and I noticed a mark on her shoulder. She was clearly trying to cover it up with her shirt. It could have been something from a curling iron or a bug bite, but I was already suspicious and the placement was adding to that. Later that night, I looked through her phone when she was asleep. I needed to know if there was something going on with her and her ex. Of course, my suspicions were immediately confirmed by their text messages. They were sending things like, "I can't wait to see you this weekend. I miss you so much. I want you back," etc. I looked through their messages and saw that he apologized for cheating on her and subtly blamed her for the cheating. Instead of fighting back like she normally would have, she accepted what he had to say and took some of the blame. I thought it was kind of pathetic for her to do that. The weekend that he told her he was going to the water park, he invited her to his house for a discussion. According to the text messages after that, they slept together that night. From there, everything escalated and they started seeing each other again. I was heartbroken and angry that she would lie to me and cheat on me like that. The thing about it is, if she wanted to try to rekindle something with him to have her family back together for her daughter's sake, I would have understood. I wouldn't have been happy with it, but if she had come to me from the beginning, I would have accepted it. But instead, she lied to my face and made me look like a fool. I wanted to get back at her in some way. I had been good to her and she completely betrayed my trust. I needed to show her that I wasn't someone who would be toyed around with like that. I played it cool and didn't say anything to her over the weekend. In fact, I tried to avoid her. After her daughter was back from her dad's house, I decided I was going to pay him a visit. I didn't know what I had planned when I got there. All I knew was that I was angry and I needed to take it out on something. When I pulled up to his house, I noticed that there was an unfamiliar car in the driveway. It didn't belong to him, and it wasn't my wife's. I didn't know who else he spent time with, but given his history, I couldn't help but wonder if it was another woman. I thought it would be really rich for my girlfriend to throw away everything we had to give this man a second chance only for him to continue cheating on her. I kind of hoped that would be the case, actually. I looked inside the car before I walked to the door, and I saw that there was a fuzzy pink steering wheel cover and made an assumption that it was a woman's car. I walked over to the windows and peeked inside to see him very cozy with another woman. They were in his living room watching a movie. She was sitting on his lap with her arms around his neck and they were kissing. I took a couple of pictures and drove away. I knew exactly what I was going to do to get back at my girlfriend then. I got home and waited for her daughter to fall asleep so she wouldn't have to hear anything I had to say. My girlfriend sat down next to me on the couch and I calmly told her that I expected her to be out of my house by the end of the week and I didn't want anything to do with her. She tried to play dumb like she didn't know what was going on, but I told her that I knew about everything. She made it out like I was the bad guy for going through her phone. At the end of our conversation, she told me that she never loved me anyway. She reminded me that her ex was the love of her life and they were going to get back together because he changed. That's when I pulled out the photos I'd taken of him with the other woman. She was shocked to see them. I told her that it didn't look like he changed as much as she thought. She was clearly angry about the pictures, and she stormed out of the living room. I heard her yelling on the phone shortly after. She came to me a couple of days before she was supposed to be out and apologized, begging me to change my mind and let her stay. Apparently, she wasn't able to work things out with her ex. I told her that wasn't an option for me, and she only had a few more days to leave. She tried to tell me that she had nowhere else to go and that she couldn't afford to be out on her own, but I just told her that wasn't my problem. She didn't have a job. She survived on spousal support from her ex, and if they couldn't work things out, I doubted she was welcome at his house. By the end of the week, all of her things were packed, and she was on her way out. She was going to her grandmother's house a couple of states away. I can only imagine that a major custody battle took place after she left the state. That's typically not something a parent with a custody agreement is allowed to do without notice. Frankly, I don't really care. She's out of my life, and all I want to do is move on from this nightmare. Opie, I'm so sorry you had to go through something like this. It really seems like you loved your girlfriend and her daughter, and it's such a shame that you had to lose both of them in this. It sounds like your girlfriend had legitimate reasons for leaving her ex to begin with, so it's hard to understand why she would be so quick to go back to him. Someone in her position will do anything in their power to try to shift the blame onto someone else, so of course, she would treat you like a villain for looking at her phone. Cheaters will do anything not be held responsible for their actions. I think it is funny how her ex still had another woman he was seeing and lying to her again. She clearly fell for whatever it was he was telling her and was ready to throw away her life for another chance with a man who treated her like garbage. Hopefully after all of this, she'll at least open her eyes to the people around her so she can see what their true intentions are, good and bad. I agree, there is no doubt in my mind they are going through quite a custody battle after she left the state. I wouldn't even be surprised if the ex was awarded custody after she left on top of everything else. I really hope you're able to move past this in time and can find a partner who doesn't lie to you that you can be happy with. Now, let's move on to our next story. My 33 male wife, 30 female, and I have been together for 6 years. When I met her, I knew right away that I wanted to be with her forever. She was everything I ever thought I wanted in a woman and more. It actually took a little bit of convincing to get her to go out with me to begin with. She was new at the office we worked in, and she didn't want to get in trouble by dating another employee. But I could tell that she liked me by how she looked at me. We eventually had our first date, and it was incredible. It sparked the beginning of a whirlwind romance, and we got married about a year and a half after meeting. One of my favorite things about her was her desire to always be learning. Whether it was a new skill or a language, she was always trying to expand her horizons. She was a very worldly person. She loved to travel and she loved learning things about different cultures. I wasn't any of that, but I aspired to be, so I admired her for it. We did some traveling together when we first got married. We visited Singapore and Thailand together, which was incredible. When the pandemic happened, obviously, we weren't able to travel at all. Not being able to travel and explore the world really took a toll on my wife. It truly was her greatest passion, and having her confined within a house for months was a nightmare for her. One of the things that she did to escape from that was to join this online club that would meet once or twice a month. People would just chat over a Zoom call about places they visited and their cultures. One of her favorite aspects of it was a recipe sharing section where everybody shared different foods from their respective cultures. She loved her group. She actually became pretty good friends with a lot of the members. They would chat with each other away from the group meetings and play games online or watch movies together through Discord. I was happy that she was able to find a way to survive those early days of the pandemic. When everything was clear, vaccines were coming out, and it was finally safe to travel, she jumped the first opportunity she had. Unfortunately, I was back working in the office, so my schedule wasn't permitting anything like that. She was actually laid off at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was supporting us both, so if she wanted to travel, she would have been able to. We had a long conversation about it because she felt bad going without me, but she told me how trapped she felt after everything that happened. I wasn't happy with her going without me. I felt left out, but I knew that she needed that freedom, so I agreed to let her go. She left for a week and came back happier than I'd seen her in a long time. She had gone to Germany to visit one of the friends she made in her online group. She showed me a ton of pictures of them together, the things she'd seen and the food she had eaten. I thought it was enough to satiate her desire to travel until we could do it together, but I was wrong. It only seemed to open a window for her to want to do more. I still couldn't take off and ignore my responsibilities to go with her. I explained how her traveling alone made me feel, and she agreed that she would wait until I could take some time off before she went anywhere else. A couple of months after we had that conversation, she told me that one of her friends from the online group she was in had been begging her to come for her wedding. At first, I thought that I would have had enough time to request off of work and go with her. When she told me the dates, I was disappointed because I knew I wasn't able to go. I had a big work conference that was mandatory that I attended. I reminded her of that, and she told me she had forgotten all about it. I didn't realize this at the time, but she was lying about that then. I didn't have any reason to suspect that something was going on, so she seemed genuine when she told me that she forgot and wouldn't go if I couldn't go with her. She knew that I would tell her to just go without me. The weeks leading up to her departure were a little strange. I could tell that there was something wrong with her, but I didn't know what at the time. She was acting very nervous around me. She couldn't meet me in the eyes a lot of the time, and it always seemed like there was something on the tip of her tongue that she wanted to say. We both left on the same day for our flights. I was so busy that I didn't even think to check in on her when her flight should have landed. When I got back to my hotel room at the end of the day, I checked my messages to see if she sent me anything, but she didn't. Before I started to worry, I logged into the airline's website to check her arrival time. Because I traveled for work a lot and she liked to travel in general, we had a joint account so we could crew miles. I saw that there was a new flight logged in our history. She landed where she told me she was originally going to, but there was a departure to Paris, France an hour after the other flight arrived. She never mentioned anything about going to Paris while she was there. I screenshotted the information and I texted it to her to make sure that it was her that bought it. It wasn't impossible that somebody could have hacked our account and bought their own plane ticket. She didn't respond to me right away, but I got a message about 15 minutes after the Paris flight was scheduled to arrive. That pretty much confirmed to me that she was in Paris. I just didn't understand what she would be doing there. She called me from the airport and told me that she had a little extra time and she wanted to visit the city before the wedding. I was honestly a little too tired to argue with her, so I accepted it and figured we would talk about that later on. It was a little bit frustrating for me because airline tickets aren't cheap, especially not when somebody is buying business class and first class tickets everywhere they go. As I said, she lost her job at the beginning of the pandemic. I had an incredible job and supporting both of us wasn't an issue at all, but when she was making purchases like that, it would be nice to be aware of them. I went to sleep and didn't even think about it until I woke up in the morning. When I looked at my phone, I saw that I had a text message from an unknown number. It wasn't immediately alarming because I have a lot of spam text messages that come through on a daily basis. When I opened it to see what it was, I saw a picture of my wife standing in front of a mirror naked with a man standing behind her taking a picture. There was no context given to the photo at all. Immediately I replied and I asked who the person was, and they read the message. They just didn't reply. The conference I was attending was hugely important for my work, so I tried as best as I could to push what I saw to the back of my mind just to get through the day. I didn't look at my phone because I couldn't stomach the idea of my wife texting me that she loved me after what I saw. When I was finally finished with the day, I noticed that the number that texted me tried to call me twice. I got back to my hotel room and I called back. Surprisingly, a man answered the phone. I asked him who he was and why he sent me the picture that he did. He told me that he just wanted me to know that I was barking up the wrong tree by talking to my wife. I was very confused about what he was saying. I was married to the woman. If anybody was barking up the wrong tree, it was him. While we were on the phone, I noticed that he had a thick French accent. It was clear that she booked the ticket to France to be with that guy in the picture. Out of curiosity, I checked the airline website again to see if she had booked another ticket back to the city she was originally supposed to be in, but she didn't. The only ticket that was remaining was her return flight home. Without thinking much about what I was doing, I removed my payment information from the website and I canceled her flight. I didn't know exactly what was going on there, but I knew she cheated on me. The details about what she told that guy weren't really any of my concern. She lied to me about why she needed to go abroad so she could sneak off with the other man. I doubted there was even a wedding she was supposed to attend. I finished up the conference and went home right away. If she was going to cheat on me, I was going to take everything from her. She could be stranded in Paris for the rest of her life, and I wouldn't care. When the time came for her to come home, she called and texted me and asked me about why I canceled her flight. She had no idea her little boyfriend told me about what was happening. I ended up answering the phone and explaining to her that I knew everything and she wasn't going to be returning to the States on my dime. She would have to figure out her own way home. She tried to explain the picture by saying that I misunderstood because that was an old photo of an ex. I knew for a fact it wasn't. She was lying to me yet again. I told her that she had one chance to tell me the truth, and that was it. She caved in and told me what was really happening. Of course, the man she met in Paris was one of the people from her online group. They had both gotten to talking and he seduced her. He was in a band and he was artsy, things that she would normally go for in a man before she met me. I didn't say anything about it, and I told her that when she got home, she could expect to find divorce papers waiting for her. Then I hung up. I didn't buy her plane ticket back. She actually ended up having to call several people to try and get them to buy her a ticket because she didn't have any of her own money. I had completely cut her off after I found out she cheated. Her sister ended up buying her the ticket, then called me to ream me out over the phone about stranding her. I did some digging online to try to find out who the guy was that my wife was sleeping with. She mentioned that he had a band, but when I found him, I was surprised by how many followers he had. He was a growing artist and had recently released a song that was doing pretty well. I knew it was wrong when I did it, but I couldn't help myself. I blurred out my wife's face, so she couldn't sue me for revenge. Then I posted the picture of the man online with a throwaway account tagging him in it. It got a lot of views, and the story that I posted along with it about how he slept with a married woman and ruined someone's life got a lot of sympathy from people. I divorced my wife, and she ended up moving out with her sister while she looked for a job that could sustain her. She ended up working in person again, which I knew would disrupt her traveling desires. I thought that was funny. A couple of months after I posted the picture online, I checked on the status of the band out of curiosity. They had gotten quite a mixed reception over the image. One of the band members spoke out on their Instagram page about how after everything happens, it was decided that it would be best for the band to part ways and pursue different paths, so it felt kind of good knowing that their band might have broken up because of me. OP. It's clear your wife made up the entire story about the wedding to have an excuse to go abroad without you. She probably even scheduled the date during your conference because she knew you wouldn't be able to go along. It seems like she took advantage of your kindness by not only spending your money to go and have that affair, but also knowing that you would be okay with not going if it made her happy. I would be interested in knowing what she told the other man that encouraged him to send that picture. Did he think that they were in some kind of exclusive relationship? Did he think that you were some scorn lover who was texting her all the time? It's very strange that someone who was just sleeping with a woman would send a message like that. I think it's funny how angry your sister-in-law was about you stranding your wife in France. I think it was the least that she deserved after flying there just to cheat on you. I hope that the man's band broke up because of the picture that you posted. If they got a lot of negative feedback from it, I wouldn't blame the band members for trying to distance themselves from him. I know what you went through is a lot, but I hope you're able to move on in the future and find somebody else who will value what you put into a relationship. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. 3 days before New Year's Eve in 2021, I was tested for COVID and told that I must quarantine until the test results come back. It was just my luck that the test results wouldn't be ready until next year. I called my girlfriend of 2 years and broke the news. I wouldn't be able to party with her or socialize with anyone until next year. She was with me the day before I got tested, but she didn't offer to visit or stay with me. Although I was bummed I was being quarantined, so I chose not to be offended. I texted her on the day before New Year's Eve, and she only replied 4 times in the entire day. Her responses were short and cold. I couldn't believe she didn't have time to video call me at all. On the day before New Year's Eve, she didn't respond to me at all. At this point, I was really disappointed and pretty much assumed we were done. Why else would she ignore me? I would never do this to her, especially if she was sick and alone over New Year's. On New Year's Eve, she texted me once to ask how I was doing. After I replied, I didn't hear anything. Midnight arrived and I banged pots and pans out my bedroom window while I waited for her to message or call me. She never did. Around 1 a.m., I started calling her over and over again. Her phone would just ring. Finally, someone answered. It was a man's voice. He told me to stop calling her because she was asleep in his bed. I told him I was her boyfriend of 2 years and he couldn't be serious. He said he was dead serious. She was staying at his house and sleeping with him for the past 3 days. He said she told him she had been single for months now, and my phone number was programmed as lame ex-boyfriend. I was in disbelief. I demanded to talk to her, but he hung up on me. I was distraught. In the morning, she texted me to say Happy New Year. I love you, and I responded with that means nothing if you say it from another man's bed. She called me immediately and started trying to figure out what I knew. As soon as I told her I spoke with him on the phone, she confessed everything. She met him on Tinder a couple of weeks ago and decided to meet up with him 3 days before New Year's Eve. She stayed at his house from then until this point. Even though it wasn't much of a surprise, I dumped her. She was understanding and calm, but it was just the start of her bad karma. The man she was sleeping with kicked her out on January 4th because his wife and kids were coming back. She went back to her parents' house, but that was where she normally lived anyway. It was at this time that she really started to feel regret for what she did. She threw away our relationship so easily, but now she was alone. She started calling me every day, but I wouldn't always answer. She basically kept saying how sorry she was and that she was stupid for seeking another man. I agreed with all of her self-criticism without offering any support or willingness to meet in person again. She gave up calling me for a little while, so it was odd when she called me about 2 weeks later. She was sobbing when she told me she was pregnant. I told her if she was going to keep the baby, she'd have to get a DNA test to prove it was mine. She cried harder, explaining she didn't want to keep the baby, but she didn't have the money or anyone to help her pay for an abortion. She couldn't tell her parents because they wouldn't want her to have an abortion. I told her that sucked and hung up. I didn't know at the time, but she asked one relative at a time to help her get an abortion. How embarrassing. She was met with denial after denial until someone finally told her parents what was going on. They told her she could choose between being pregnant and homeless or being pregnant and living with them. She chose to stay with them. I called her parents to find out all this and asked them to have the baby's DNA tested so I would know if I was the father. It didn't take long to find out I wasn't. If my ex wasn't ashamed before this, she certainly was now. Her parents grilled her until she finally told them who she thought the father was. Sad thing was that she couldn't even be sure. Her parents took her phone and called his number. His wife answered. I don't know for sure what happened next, but I heard that she filed for divorce and custody of their kids. Another family broken apart due to infidelity, selfishness, and inconsideration. The man was willing to do a DNA test to find out if he was the father, but after it was concluded that he refused to be involved with the child at all. I think he was so willing to prove he wasn't the father that he didn't give any consideration to what he would do if he was. My ex tried to get child support from him, but he fled the country. He wasn't taking any chances, so my ex was left alone to raise a child at the young age of 22. Her parents offer her a free babysitting service, but only when she goes to work at her crappy job. They call every single time to make sure she's there since she destroyed all trust they had in her. Needless to say, my ex learned that cheating is never a good idea. It brings many unintended consequences, embarrassment, and shame. I learned how important it is to take your time while dating someone. Just because you've been with them for 1 or 2 years doesn't mean you know them as well as they want you to believe. I'm starting this new year as a bachelor, swimming in positive vibes. Wow, OP, I am so sorry you had to go through this over New Year's. People often use this time to reflect on their past and contemplate their future, which must have made it all the more painful for you. I believe you did the right thing by noticing the odd behavior and quickly realizing the relationship was probably coming to an end. Karma took care of the rest for you. Many times it's much better to let go of a cheating partner, hold on to them, and attempt to regain trust. People who do things without thought for others will often find themselves getting into trouble. Stay clear of that and focus on yourself. When someone pops into your life, take your time getting to know them and follow your gut if something feels off. A healthy relationship would have constant communication and listening. Thank you for sharing your story. I wish you all the best. Now for today's second story. So here comes a bit of a rant, but I have to get it off my chest. My wife, 30 female, and I, 33 male, have been together for 8 years. Married 5, and D-Day was 2 weeks ago. A little background to make some things a little clearer later on. We were both really into the punk music scene, and that's how we met and how we spent a lot of our time. As time went on, I lost interest in and grew out of going to concerts and shows, but my wife still enjoys going. So 2 weeks ago, there was a concert she wanted to go to. As usual passed, but she went with some friends of ours, and like always, I told her to have a good time. Later in the night, I get a Snapchat from one of the friends at the concert. It's of the other friend at the bar acting strange. I'm a little confused why they sent it to me, but then the camera pans and zooms to my wife talking to a guy, and it looks like they are really enjoying each other's company. Nothing physical, just really close talking, but very flirtatious looking. I try texting them asking what's going on, but I don't get an answer from them. I start texting my wife, but also no answer. I honestly trusted my wife, and even though the text over the video was troubling, I reassure myself everything is okay and try to get some sleep. But it's not okay. I can barely sleep, and if I do happen to doze off, I wake up with a tight gut checking my phone for messages, but there's nothing. I hear the door open around 4 a.m. along with soft sobbing. I'm in bed at this moment, and my heart is pounding. She comes into the bedroom, sits by my side. I'm kind of pretending to be asleep and shakes me, saying we need to talk. She tells me she slept with someone else that night. My whole world literally shattered in the time it took to say that sentence. My blood felt on fire like I was getting needle pin pricks all over my body. I'm just sitting there in this pain. She reached for my hand and I pulled away. She is crying and says she's sorry, regrets it, is remorseful and all that. Deep down, I wanted her to visually see how hurt I am, so I asked for details. She tells me they met at the show, talked, and hit it off. She said she lost herself and it felt like her first date all over again. I asked about what our friends did, and she tells me they tried to pull her away, but she lied to them and said he was an old friend and they were catching up. She left the concert with him and went to his place to have sex. After having sex, she says she fell asleep for a bit and then woke up feeling what have I just done. She's crying and tells him she has to go and says she cried the entire cab ride back. I start with the how could you and why. Her only explanation was she got those first date feelings again, and he reminded her of me when we first met. We had a wonderful marriage, lots of affection, communication, love, and understanding. She had no issues with the marriage. This was all one big mistake. I know she regrets it. I know how remorseful she is, and that is what hurts the most. I could understand if I was slipping as a husband or if she was unhappy, but everything was fine. She's been very honest with everything and in the past 2 weeks has taken a lot of heat from friends and family. Every day I can see it on her face how much she wishes she could change the things she did and how much she wants to reconcile. Yesterday, when I woke up, I lay in bed and I was feeling good, must have had a good dream or something, and I thought of all the good we had and how I shouldn't let this ruin our and what we both thought was a great marriage. I was actually kind of smiling and I went to go tell her I want to work on this, but as soon as I saw her, it all went away. I'm going to file for divorce. Update. About 2 weeks after my last post, early April, she moved out, and honestly, it feels like a curse has been lifted. That month of her being here, and having to see her every day, and being reminded of what she did ruined me. I was depressed with crazy mood swings. All of a sudden, I just feel flush with anger, but now that she's gone, I'm not dreading coming home anymore or waking up in the morning. I'm getting out working on stuff around here and have energy. It's been nice. She moved in with her mom, who was probably the only person who would take her while she finds an apartment or until I take her back, which won't be happening. My friends have been very helpful and supportive throughout this. Only a few are still really talking to her, even though they don't condone what she did. I ran into one of these friends who is also a coworker of hers, and she told me she's not doing well. Depressed, not doing well at her job, etc. As much as I don't wish her any specific misery, I can't say I didn't take a little bit of joy in hearing that. I did ask her if she gave her a reason to why she did it. Pretty much got the same answer I did. Although she added she felt like being selfish and wanted to be single again for a night, which she deeply regrets now. Opie, I'm glad you divorced her and happy to hear you're doing well. Remember to always listen to your gut. Don't bottle up how you feel. You know she knew what she was doing. She shook off 2 friends. She was looking for something extra and went for it. She knew the friends would tell you if she didn't, so she confessed to beat them to the punch. She may feel bad now, but it was a conscious decision. I wish you the best of luck with your situation, OP, and hope you're able to heal from this. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Today, I am happy to say that I am a single man with no children and with a great career as an electrician residential wireman. I am also an adjunct instructor for a local junior college here. I do well for myself and I am so glad I dodged this bullet. I almost made the biggest mistake of my life. I thought I struck gold when I met my ex, beautiful, smart, and fun to be around. We officially met while I was on another date in June of 2021, right when things were slowly opening up in my state after the pandemic. I wasn't laid off from my position, but after work during that time, there was nothing to do but go home and stay inside. We had rules set up in our office where only so many people could be in at once. We'd have to schedule when one of us was coming in to grab equipment. No more pairing up for jobs as far as commuting. Thus, riding solo, sometimes to different cities. I got pretty lonely. After going home one night, I decided to download Tinder. I initially just wanted someone to talk to, I swear. I never had any intentions on hooking up or anything. I really was just bored and was missing talking with people. I met a lot of women there, and some of them were married. They'd say that they were separated from their husbands, and some even said their husbands were okay with it. Sort of like the open relationship thing. I never spoke with those women for long periods. But my ex and another woman I spoke to often, to the point where I went out on a date with one, and ironically, my ex was working at restaurant we went to. I had no idea she worked there, as she told me that she was a caretaker, which she was, but apparently she was working as a waitress for some extra money then. She quit once we started dating, but it's still funny how this all played out. Anyway, while I'm on a date with another woman I was talking to while talking to my ex, all his friends trying to get to know each other, my ex and I noticed each other when she was coming towards our table. She wasn't our waiter, but she was for the table behind us. We saw each other, smiled, said hey, and that was it. Later that night, my ex texted me and said she was cute but I look much better. Not going to lie, she was telling the truth. After that incident, my now ex, her text messages and calls became more frequent. Before, she would be so timey with texting, meaning we'd be consistently texting for a week, then she'd disappear for a week. But after that night, she was hitting me up every day just to make sure I was not talking to anyone else. We ended up dating for about 7 months before we both decided to be exclusive. We clicked very well. I was pleasantly surprised because I never intended on getting serious with someone from Tinder. Anyway, we did, and in October of 2022, I proposed to her. Stupidly, I thought she was worth it. Our families loved each other. She wanted kids and a family like myself. We both had our own leases apartments, and the plan was to move in together once our leases were up. Mine August and hers October in 2023. She made sure to tell me over and over again that I am not to have any dancers at my bachelor party. She said this to my brother as well, who was my best man, and he'd laugh and say, "Okay, sure, you got it." I knew what that meant, but after talking to my brother, I told him not to. I did that for her. So at my bachelor party, there were no dancers. We had a Madden tournament, ate junk food, and drank alcohol. She was not to have any dancers as well. She told me she wouldn't because she thinks it's disgusting, and her maid of honor said there 100% will not be any dancers. I truly believe all they did was watch a movie and drank wine. That's exactly what my ex told me happened after I asked her if she enjoyed her party when we spoke that night. Little did I know the woman I was about to marry did the nasty with multiple dancers that night in her apartment screaming YWLO. I saw the video and it hurt my soul. To even think I got it in with this woman all after some big buff guys had their way with her is so freaking disgusting. And she did not even use protection with any of those guys. I saw the whole darn thing. So we got married in March of this year, and everyone was happy and had a great time. We headed for our flight the next morning to Puerto Rico for our honeymoon. We were to spend a week out there, but I didn't make it past one night after what I discovered about my ex. That night we were drinking heavily and started doing what newlyweds do. Afterwards, she got a call from her sister and asked if she could send a particular wedding video that the sister took on my ex's phone. My ex was going through her gallery and she giggled and said, "One night to remember." I heard her and I could see clearly because she was laying right below me in the bed in between my legs. She thought I was asleep, but I wasn't. So I saw a large Johnson behind the play button of her phone. She had some video of some huge guy in there. I didn't say anything and she scrolled back up and sent the video her sister was asking for. I pretended I didn't see anything and acted like I was still asleep. My plan was to go through her phone to see what that was about. Yes, it could have been just some P-Hub stuff she had in there, but I had a gut feeling it was something I needed to see. Now, I've always known her passcode because she gave it to me before when I needed to do something on her phone, and luckily she never changed it. I stayed up until 3 a.m. that night. Already exhausted, but I needed to get into that phone. She was knocked out cold, and I went for the phone, and sure enough, it was the same passcode. I went straight into her gallery and looked at her videos. The date of her bachelorette parties was filled with events that went down at the party. I took the phone outside to the balcony and shut the door, and I started watching. Johnson swinging, kissing, slapping, everything. My wife not only was giving blows to guys, but in multiple videos, these dancers were having their way with her, along with other women, and the ladies are just cheering it on. My ex was screaming out Wywello and doing all kinds of disgusting things. I wanted to puke. I tossed the phone on the bed. She was still asleep. I grabbed my things and I left. I still had some hair soap and things like that in the bathroom, but I didn't care. I just got my clothes, phone, and I left. I paid a reschedule fee to get the returning flight that day. The flight was not until noon, so I sat at the airport just thinking about how disgusting I was. My only thoughts were to get checked for diseases and divorce her. She texted me asking if I was grabbing breakfast or something around 10 a.m. I texted her back with, "You are disgusting. I saw the video of you at your bachelorette party. What were you thinking? You cheated on me with 3 different guys, then came home and slept with me. What the F is wrong with you? We are getting a divorce. I can't believe I married you." She replied that that was not her in the videos doing that stuff. This gaslighting ticked me off. I clearly saw my ex sucking and taking it from a group of guys. I said, "F you. I saw the videos. We are done. I'm going home." She responded with, "Babe, I'm sorry. It's not my fault. They must have put something in my drink because I don't remember doing that. Why would I record this?" Now, I'm not going to lie, when I read that text, I wanted to believe it. Maybe they did take advantage of her. Oh my gosh, that's possible. Then I remembered when she said, "What a night to remember," with the giggle. I told her I'm not stupid, and the fact that she tried to lie to me knowing I'm telling the truth ticks me off the more. Told her we are done. When I got back home, the first thing was to get tested. I didn't even schedule with my primary care. I went to urgent care and again followed up with my main doctor. I was clean. Thank God. I was so worried. By the way, I'm just now getting divorced. As I'm writing this, it's August 1st. Now I'm finally divorced. It took 4 months to get her out of my life. I have to tell you what transpired during that whole time, and it was a freaking roller coaster. In April, she was served at her place. That same day, she showed up at my place and assaulted me. She spat in my face, scratched my face while calling me the biggest piece of crap on earth, and that she was going to sue me for wasting her time. Yeah, she threatened to sue me for wasting her precious time and said I was going to jail after leaving her stranded like that. I don't know how she managed to get home. My guess is that she bought another flight. So I called the police after that scratch. She indeed was arrested. Not only for assaulting me, but resisting arrest and assaulting an officer. She spat at the officer and it landed on his shirt. This was why the divorce took so long. It could have been over quicker. The divorce was held up because of her hearings, and all of which she was dealing with regarding the assault. Once she was sentenced, I was able to get the divorce finalized, and she signed what she needed to with no issue. She is currently serving 8 months in jail. She was facing 2 to 5 years. Talk about karma. You lied to me, cheated on me at your bachelorette party, threatened to sue me after I filed for divorce, assaulted me. Now look at you behind bars. Sweet karma. I love it. My whole thought when I left her in Puerto Rico was to get the marriage annulled. According to several lawyers I spoke with, including the woman I hired, cheating is not grounds for an annulment. She would have had to commit some type of fraud or lies about her identity and some other stuff that was said. I just wanted out as quickly as possible. But she went to jail with several charges pinned on her. I've had my apartment door kicked in by her family members. My tires have been flattened and passenger door kicked in. The cousin who kicked in my apartment door, I believe, kicked in my car door as well. He is nowhere to be found, but I have filed a police report. Man, I was scared for my life. I don't own a firearm. My brother is currently helping me get one now. I never ever intended on owning a weapon, but after that night, I wanted one. I'm taking classes as I've never touched or seen a firearm in real life. Her cousin has a warrant out for his arrest and is already a convicted felon. He didn't hit me, but he got in my face and grabbed me by the collar. Are you familiar with the wrestler Amos? He's Nigerian. Not her actual cousin, but looks and built exactly like him. The dude is huge. If he wasn't a criminal, he could have easily been a professional athlete. Her parents have threatened me. It's been a disaster. I just wish this crap will all go away. This woman's family is crazy. Yes, I'm ecstatic that her butt is in jail, but I'm still dealing with the consequences of marrying a whore. Guys, it just isn't worth it. Don't be like me. I'm currently in talks with a cousin about moving to Oregon. My lease is up at the end of August. I've already told the office here that I will not be renewing. It's either go stay with my family until I find something else or move to Oregon. At least for a year or two. My cousin is also in the same line of work as me and can at least get me a job with his company as a wireman. I enjoy teaching too, so if I do leave, I'll see about picking up another adjunct job as well. But young men, take my story and learn from it, please. I divorced the woman and now look, I'm still dealing with this crap. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, I'll see you again.